the demographic connection between problematic video game usage and alcohol and tobacco abuse disorders. Now, first let's start with the introduction. So problematic video game usage has been on the rise in recent years. Video games have become much more accessible and much more affordable to people across the globe. That led to increased levels of PVG, which is problematic video game usage. And the definition of problematic video game usage is an addiction to playing video games in which one can have a hard time stopping themselves from continuing to play those video games. And the most recent studies in the field of problematic video game research have specifically looked at its connection with substance abuse disorders. And there has been a few studies already looking at this connection, mainly Baton Rouge in 2014, finding that there was a positive correlation between the poor mental health that is caused by both problematic video game usage and substance abuse disorders, mainly alcohol abuse disorder. And only a few demographics have been identified through this connection between problematic video game usage and substance abuse. Specifically in Nash and Rion's survey, they looked at education level, age, and gender. And those are the main three that have been looked at between problematic video game usage and substance abuse. Now, it's important to know these demographics, as knowing this susceptible population can help us both prevent and treat problematic video game usage better, while also understanding maybe even causality. And my personal interest in this topic, I personally experience problematic video game usage, so this felt natural to explore something I struggle with myself. And psychological problems such as addictions always interest me due to my experience with poor mental health and both myself and friends. And my research question is, what are the demographic connections between problematic video game usage and tobacco and alcohol abuse disorders such dependence? And my hypothesis is that there will be a significant demographic connection, as multiple other studies have found a demographic connection between the gender. And on to my review. So in 2015, DSM-5 was published, and it provided criteria for problematic video game usage, specifically defining it as a preoccupation with playing video games that the user cannot stop with their self-control. And there was some controversy over this, especially its classification as an addiction, as research correctly stated, that the term addiction may suffer due to problematic video game uses classification, as the DSM-5 criteria was mainly based off of researcher metrics and adapted DSM-4 criteria that wasn't standard across multiple research studies. And so DSM-5 tried to synthesize those, but clearly there was some controversy over it. But despite this, DSM-5 is used today for all the PVG, or the majority of problematic video game usage studies, as an instrument to measure it. And on to problematic video game use and substance abuse. So, as stated before, in DSM-5, problematic video game usage is heavily related to substance abuse. Specifically, in a survey by Luau, it was found that the addictive behaviors that are there's a behavioral link between problematic video game usage and substance abuse, where similar addictive behaviors are found between both of them. And another study by Salguero and Moran also found that the behaviors that put people at risk for problematic video game usage were also the same ones that put people at risk for substance abuse disorders. Now, another link that's been identified is the mental link, where in the study by Mazzoni, he found that the problematic video game usage was associated with lower scores on life satisfaction due to both causing anxiety and depression. And The third link that's been found between them is the motivations for doing problematic video game usage or substance abuse. It was found by REAM's survey that the motivations for starting problematic video game usage and substance abuse were very similar. Now on to the final one, specifically the demographics of problematic video game usage. Now this is the least explored area of problematic video game usage, with only a few surveys looking at this. And one of them being a REAM study in 2011, where he looked for the demographic information of people who experienced both problematic video game usage and substance dependence. In his study, he found that lower education levels were correlated to higher risk of problematic video game usage and substance dependence, while also being younger increased those chances. In another study by Van Rijge, found going over gender, age, and also education level, found that there was a large demographic connection where boys were 4 times as likely to experience problematic video game usage than girls, but that age and education level had very little effect on the likelihood of problematic video game usage. Now on to my method. My method was an anonymous survey distributed through email. Now the reason I chose a survey method was that survey could give me a large amount of data, which for demographics is very important, as I would want to generalize my conclusions to the population I'm looking at. And the survey was emailed to an advisor, which was then sent to the students. Now the questions were heavily based on the DSM-5 criteria for problematic video game usage, with supplemented questions from TAPS and VAT, video game addiction test, and the tobacco, alcohol, prescription medicine, and other substances test. But not all criteria were included as in the questions due to concerns over survey length, and in total 350 responses were gotten. In terms of how data was analyzed, the statistics, I pulled out the statistics from the survey. Mainly demographic statistics were compared between the problematic video game use group and the alcohol abuse disorder group. Other statistics were also pulled out, such as the criteria for problematic video game usage and just general demographic information about those who have tried tobacco and alcohol. And my results here. You can see all the different demographic factors I look at, but specifically I want to focus in on 2 of them, which had some of the highest difference between them. Of the 350 respondents, you can see that 30 total respondents experienced problematic video game usage, which is 8.5% of the population, and only 4 respondents experienced alcohol dependence, while 0 respondents experienced tobacco dependence. But specifically, you can see that there's a large difference between the annual household income and weighted GPA of the 2 groups. And another result is that the 2 most common problematic video game use criteria were that people had the desire to, or trying to curb their video game usage, but had failed, and also that playing video games has had a negative impact on people's life, yet they still play them. Another, and the 4th result is that of those in the population that had tried alcohol or tobacco, they were much more likely to be employed than those who had not tried alcohol or tobacco. Then to my discussion. So household income was much higher for alcohol abuse participants, where there was a 36.6% difference between the highest level of household income between the 2 groups. This supports our current The current literature in the field, this study by Elgar, found that high-income adolescents in high-income families are actually 85% more likely to drink than low-income families, and also that there were high levels of drunkenness in higher-income families. It is also supported that problematic video game users did not have the majority of its members concentrated in the highest level of income, as Inkara and Baikal found that income had little effect on the likelihood of problematic video game usage developing. And this is most likely due to the large disposable income that is required to be able to purchase alcohol. And the importance of this is that household income is not similar between those with problematic video game usage and those with alcohol abuse disorder. Now, second, specifically about the weighted GPA difference, where a lot more participants in the problematic video game usage group had 4.0 plus GPAs, 28.3% more. And this directly conflicts with the majority of literature on problematic video game usage, but it agrees with the alcohol abuse disorder literature. Specifically, in a study by Sun, it was found that problematic video game usage hurt school performance quite a bit and led to a decrease in motivation, which led to a decrease in academic achievement among students, which directly conflicts with problematic video game usage here having the higher weighted GPA. But in Naomi's study, it confirms that alcohol abuse disorder can decrease academic performance, where it was found that alcohol abuse disorder can also hurt motivation or academic performance. And the importance of this finding is that problematic video game usage is not as detrimental to academic performance as alcohol abuse disorder is, or basically, alcohol abuse disorder has a lot more of an effect on academic performance than problematic video game usage does. Now, looking at the problematic video game usage criteria, where the most common criteria, again, were the ones about not being able to stop despite having the desire to, and it having a negative effect on the respondent's life. This supports current literature where Muhammad in 2023 found that there's an addictive dopamine loop created by problematic video game usage that keeps people playing and coming back to games. And the importance of this is that it's very dangerous that problematic video game usage can lead to these issues, especially in adolescence. Mainly, what could happen is that also Muhammad found there was a lack of social interaction. What could happen is that problematic video game usage respondent develops problematic video game usage, then problems are created because of that, and then to cope with that, they play more video games to get more dopamine, which can create a dangerous downward spiral, especially for adolescents. And then concerning employment and substance abuse disorders, the alcohol abuse disorder group was much more likely to be employed than the general survey group. And this is supported by Akinola, where it was found that the stress from jobs directly correlated to an increase in use of substances. And this is also dangerous for adolescents, as of course it is illegal for adolescents to intake these substances, but also that it could, also explained earlier, that it could decrease academic performance and lead to decreasing chances of getting a job in the future due to this. And in terms of limitations in future research, there were a lot of limitations in my study, mainly the lack of alcohol abuse disorder and tobacco abuse disorder survey respondents. It led to me not being able to make as strong as conclusions as I would have liked to due to the lack of population. And it could lead to my conclusions being much weaker than than they would have been if I had more people. Also, the demographic population was limited to a Catholic private high school in Arizona. So there could have been factors that influenced this, and doing the study for another population would most likely could yield different results. And speaking of that, for future research, mainly future research should expand on what demographics are looked at and what substances are looked at. I didn't look at all the demographics, and there are still many more that should be looked at to see if there is a demographic connection, because it is clear that there is some demographic connection with gender. But also with substances, as I only looked at alcohol abuse disorder and tobacco abuse disorder, and some could easily look at prescription medicine abuse disorder and of other illegal substances. And there are also other areas of problematic video game usage and substance disorders. Mainly co-occurrence has a lot of research going on in it right now, and that could be explored. And so in conclusion, there is little to no demographic connection between problematic video game use and substance abuse disorders for the demographics that are in my survey. Not all demographics. And this disproves my this goes against my hypothesis, as I thought there would be a great big connection between them. This potentially goes against current literature. It just means that there's no demographic connection between these specific demographics, but there is still a demographic connection. There are many other connections between problematic video game usage and substance abuse. And the second conclusion that can be drawn is that problematic video game usage is a dire addiction due to its addictive loop of getting people in and then people struggling to be able to leave, even though they notice and perceive that it is having a negative effect on their life. That could lead to bad stuff happening, especially for adolescents who are still have their prefrontal cortex forming. And also, for the final conclusion, employed adolescents are more likely to try tobacco and alcohol. The main importance of this is that it's a dangerous method of coping, especially for adolescents who may not know the effects of it. And there needs to be other methods for them to cope with the stress other than resorting to substance abuse. So.
Thanks, Brady. We just got a few questions for you, and we'll wrap it up. So for the first one, how did you determine which results generated by your method were the most important to inform your new understanding?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, how did you choose which results that were generated by your method were the most important to articulate your new understanding?
Well, the first results I pulled out were mainly ones to answer my research question about specifically the demographics of the alcohol abuse disorder group and the problematic video game use disorder group. For my other results, I looked to my research studies to see what kind of stuck out in their discussion sections about what could be done for future research. Specifically, a lot of them talk about other demographics, and that's kind of how I had the whole idea. But, yeah.
Okay.
How does your new understanding address a gap in the scholarly conversation?
So the gap I fill is mainly that there is a clear lack of demographic connection for the demographics I have looked at between problematic video game usage and alcohol abuse disorder. And so the main implication of that is that for future research, we can be sure that these demographic factors do not have a big or a role at all. Although future research should be done on this to confirm my conclusions, and just because I found this is not mean it could be across the world, because my limitations, of course, were stuck to a private high school in Arizona.
And then the final question is, what was the most important research skill that you acquired as part of this process? And what other things in your life do you think that skill will be important for?
I think the most important skill I learned for this was perseverance, mainly just persevering through the how I didn't know about the research process I was going through. I struggled a lot with going through it. Specifically, reading my studies about substance abuse and problematic video game use, there was all this jargon. I had no clue what it meant, but I persevered and kept looking into it, and eventually I got better and better at understanding and also taking out key findings from these papers. And I think that can be applied to a lot of other parts of my life. You know, perseverance, mainly through academic work, especially from this, and also being able to pull out key findings through perseverance can really help me support further arguments I make in the future using reliable evidence from research papers.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Brady.